Welcome back to the DADennial podcast, where modern fatherhood meets real talk mental health. I'm your host, Mike Trenk, licensed clinical mental health counselor and founder of DADennial. And today's episode dives into something a lot of us feel but rarely talk about out loud: the pressure to be a good dad while trying to understand our own emotions, our past, and who we're becoming. My guest today, as you see, is Dr. Jesse Erdheim, a positive psychologist who specializes in well-being, values-aligned living, and mindfulness. And whether you're trying to break old patterns, communicate better at home, or simply show up as a calmer, more grounded version of yourself, this podcast will be for you. Just want to jump right in. Mr. Jesse Erdheim, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show.
I first wanted to bring up, so for everyone out there, I met Jesse through what you call a little get-together of therapists that you had a few weeks ago. And it was about mindfulness.
Well-being workshop for mental health professionals.
Well-being workshop. And I just did it for myself, just as something, it was after work. So I was like, I've been into mindfulness. I've done the coursework and always intrigued and want to meet, fellow people that are in the psychology field like myself, and I was really impressed with your what you were doing there. And there was two things that you specifically did: one a worksheet on gratitude and one on awe. Correct? Is that, am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah. So the goal was to we started off and got people centered through a short arrival practice, which was a mindfulness practice, and then we focused on our internal state through a gratitude exercise, and then we thought about how we interact with the broader world through an awe exercise.
So I was impressed with the gratitude worksheet. So you gave us some time to stop and think about someone that you wanted to give gratitude to and about, and write a letter.
Yeah.
And the goal was, if and when you're ready, to read it out loud or have them read it out loud to them. So I was able to do that just last week. I gave it to the person that I was writing about, and he said exactly what you were saying in that conference there of it means a lot. He uses words specifically, but he was saying something of, it means a lot to be able to read that, to understand of, this is how you feel, this is what's on your mind, that they don't really get to say every day. I think that was an important thing, and I wanted to thank you for doing, having the well-being conference there. But I think that was a great thing, especially for men. I found because there was another male that I gave this to, and just being able to express the raw feelings and emotions of gratitude that I had towards him and things that he's done for me in my life at different times, I think is even he said of this is something that's just out of the norm, and for men to be able to just sit and read it and understand it and have a conversation. And that's a big positive thing. He felt really good about it. I felt really good. So yeah, I wanted to share that update with you first and foremost. I want to know more about the wellness and what you've been doing now with positive psychology. I guess was one of my first questions of what do you offer, and what do you do with wellness?
Can I jump back and just ask, do you feel closer now? Do you feel like that relationship is even stronger after you shared that with me?
I think it helped clarify some things, to be honest, because I think not getting too far into it, of just a misunderstanding, right? A miscommunication of, even though I knew he was there for me, I wasn't able to communicate or show the gratitude and what, I didn't know how to express it. And then finally having this opportunity to kind of write it out and show him that. And it was kind of funny because we were meeting up and we went out to dinner, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. And I told him about this, and I said, here, I think you should read this, because it actually closes up some things of that maybe we're miscommunicating each other on. So it kind of helped him understand of you're not saying he wasn't mad or upset or different feelings, but of he understands better, and it leads to a healthier relationship, I think, which is, I think these are all taboo words and subjects and things of, the male culture and the male society of, to shed tears and emotions, or to feel the feelings of miscommunication and talk them out, not to have, get out of control, but just, not talk about it, or just kind of be like, whatever, just not talk to the person of, so I think it help guide our relationship. So I think that's why it's such a powerful tool. So I wanted to mention that for sure.
Yeah. So you were able to clarify some misunderstandings, and both of you felt heard. I mean, these are powerful concepts, and I can tell you're still feeling positive effects from it. Maybe a week later, it wouldn't surprise me if he is too. Yeah, why don't I talk about what I do, but just to get back to the power of that practice that you were talking about, that we did together with gratitude. So I've done this now a number of times with different groups, and the consistent theme keeps coming up whenever I ask people to share reflections once they're done writing that letter. And consistently people say, I'm able to say things that I wouldn't have been able to say in person. So, in person, either I would have struggled to find the words, because it's, it's hard to just say something off the cuff and to say it the way that you want to say it. But I think that giving people the space and time in a safe environment to really sit for a few minutes and think about what they would want to say to somebody that's important to them, but that they haven't had a chance to express appreciation and gratitude to, at least in the way that they would like, really allows the brain to process the things that you want to share with someone in the way that you want to share it with them. And it's a really powerful thing, because we live our lives, and we live sort of on default autopilot, and we know there are things we should maybe get to, but unless we carve out the space to intentionally pause and sit with something for a few minutes like that, it's a struggle to really come up with the words and to get our points across that we want to share with someone. So that was an interesting theme that's come up, I think, from several workshops that I've done where I've incorporated this exercise. People just feel like, I wouldn't have been able to say this if I was just in person with the person. So that's, to me, it's sort of a mindful act, right? I mean, you're sitting for 5 or 10 minutes, you're thinking about someone, you're visualizing them, you're thinking about all the things you would want to appreciate, share appreciation with them about. And then if you feel that it's safe enough or important enough, you actually go and share it with them, and there's this lasting impacts. I've never heard of anyone going and sharing a gratitude letter with someone and it not turning out well. Now our minds want to tell us, this is scary, don't do it, and I don't do it all the time. I mean, sometimes you're just not in the mental space to do it. But when you can, I think there's these big transformational effects, and likely a stronger human connection. And one other thing, I have a blog, and I just wrote about last night. So this idea of connection and gratitude and sharing this letter is one way of creating stronger connections. We regulate our minds and our bodies first through co-regulation, through how we're connected to someone else. So if there is a stressful situation and one person shows up calm, that's going to create this ripple effect and just have a calming effect. And then people then feed off of that, and they become calmer themselves. It becomes this reinforcing virtuous cycle. So when you share a gratitude letter with someone and they get to experience what you appreciate about them, you will then, it becomes this regulating virtuous cycle based off of an increased connection, because you feel like you were able to share what you needed to share with them. They feel appreciated and respected and important and valued, and everyone sort of gets more calm, more connected, more open, and then you yourself start to take on that. I mean, it's really a powerful thing. So, yeah, my practice, what I work with people on is how to apply the science of well-being in their lives. And what this involves is using evidence-based practices as a structure. So we meet together for 45 minutes for a week, and I'll give people an exercise that they work on for that week. So the exercise may be on gratitude, another topic, and they'll go spend time that week implementing it into their life and taking some notes on what they're noticing, how they're feeling, what their relationships are like. And I'm interested in having people essentially collect data on themselves and just be inquisitive. And then they come back and we meet and we debrief and look for insights. And we get, through a lot of this, you start to understand what your core values are, what's your sort of larger life intention. Are you acting, in accordance with that? So we get into sort of goals and sort of shifting people more towards things that are better aligned with what they want to get out of life. And we also, what we notice is we're all programmed with this negativity bias where we, by nature, tend to protect ourselves, tend to be a little bit more closed off. In stressful situations, this is really helpful because it keeps us safe. But in day-to-day life, it can really limit our capacity. And so through these practices, what we do is we're actually rewiring your brain away from negativity and feeling more limited to being more open, more curious, more compassionate, better able to connect. And you start to judge your life more positively. And it almost becomes like personal training for the mind in some ways, because I'm there every week. I put people through this program and I'm there every week to be kind of the guide and to go through things with them. And they notice their nervous system gets more calm and regulated. So the practices, these evidence-based practices are the portal into a better way of living that everyone, it's attainable for everyone, but we have to intentionally work on it. Our default programming is to, not be mindful. It's to focus on things that maybe don't give us the biggest boost in our well-being. It's to, avoid stillness, to kind of live in default patterns. So, in some ways, this is just sort of helping people feel more alive and awake, but it's done through this safe structure of these evidence-based practices, and working with me in a very I say to people, I'm a very relational and human person. So I'm an accountability partner, but I'm really a partner, and it's really very much a safe space for you to learn about yourself. And so all these things, I mean, it's really like a powerful process. It's a growth and empowerment mindset. That's how that's the way I'm focused on this. So I'm not treating anyone for anything. I'm not diagnosing, and I'm also not just asking them what they want to do to change in their life. I'm putting people through an applied program where I say, hey, psychological science has found these are the things you can do to live a more meaningful, powerful, flourishing life. And, I'm essentially the guide, the supportive accountability partner that's there for you while we're working on making these changes.
Before we go any further, where can people go find you for the well-being programs that you provide?
It's just jesseerdheim.com. And I have a free upfront 25-minute, it's a consultation, but it's really just a relaxed, no pressure conversation. We talk about what drew you to wanting to work with me, and I explain how everything works and answer questions, but it's just a nice way to get to know each other and figure out if fit for both of us.
And people that'll be watching this on YouTube channel can also click the link below. We'll put that information so that you can go to Jesse's website and learn more about him and what he offers, because I definitely think it's powerful. And hearing you talk, I'm curious of what your thoughts are and your background, positive psychology and things like that. I've always found like the self-awareness piece, right? I think it just leads all those different doors to be open, to be able to stop and to think, I guess, more clearly, and to know what you're doing and understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. I'm curious what your thoughts of the tie-in of kind of the self-awareness piece into all this.
So, great question. So through my programs, that's one of the key things that comes up, is that people become much more self-aware and understand their reactions themselves, what they need to do to regulate themselves, what they need to do proactively to move forward in different areas of their life with goals that they have. So I do sort of ask people to, as they're working on these practices, take notes on things they're observing about themselves. And it's really a time for them to really drill in and to learn more about what makes them tick and what makes them, judge their life more positively. So self-awareness is just growing leaps and bounds through this. And another result we see, particularly in terms of relationships, but could be just in general in life, is people are not reacting as much. They're responding more towards what comes up in their life. So if there was tension in a relationship and something that was triggering them, they're able to actually break that pattern of just being triggered and having things spiral, because they're more self-aware and they're able to pause and step back before they respond.
Right.
And their brain has been, again, getting rewired. So we're literally pruning away unhealthy patterns and behaviors that were kind of tripping them up before, and we're creating new neural pathways for them. So something that used to be a trigger, if it's still a trigger, you're able to recover and repair a lot easier. Or B, you're able to let it go. Or C, you're able to even go a step further and pause and look for the meaning behind the words that are triggering you, and seeing what's actually going on with this person. You're able to take a step back and say, this person cares about me. I care about them. I don't think that they're just attacking me to attacking me. Something is going on. They're almost like a dog with its leg caught in a trap in the woods, right? And you see it, and it's barking at you, and you're like, I'm scared. But then as you get closer, you see that it's trapped, and you feel compassion and empathy for it, right? So, so there's those three kind of levels we see happen, and self-awareness is sort of like the foundation of this, because if you are not tuned into what makes you and what are your needs and helping you move towards that, then you're much more likely to just react to things, and which then causes all kinds of other issues.
Well, I wonder what your thoughts are. I feel like what you're just saying there is a dilemma for males, right? Of the trying to break that cycle of, it is just a lot of reactionary stuff that we're kind of taught or led to believe, that in depth, that kind of understanding yourself and that knowledge and being able to express whatever it is, going back to for myself of writing that gratitude letter. If I'm not in a state of mind or a place to be where I'm that self-aware of knowing of, I can stop myself and stop and think and really connect. I know 20 years ago me wouldn't be able to do that. It's now through the years of training and progress that you get to this place. And I think that's why I do what I do, especially with males. I think it is so much more reactionary, and so much, hearing even that term positive psychology can be a turnoff to some males, unfortunately.
Yeah, Sure.
I think these are some of the barriers we're still trying to break. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So it's a great question. And I certainly have, I grew up in the U.S., conditioned in Western culture, so got a lot of societal male conditioning. I mean, I understand all that. So there's, I think I sort of approach this from two bigger questions, and I think if we think about it from this conditioning standpoint, it makes people kind of defensive, and it puts a label on things and has them kind of shut down and go internal. So you're almost stopping the conversation before it starts. So I think about this in terms of what do I want to get out of life, right? Like bigger questions. How do I see life flourishing in life? What do I want to get out of life? This is my one life to live. Who knows what happens each day. So what do I want to get out of life? And who do I want to be connected to on that journey? And, from that, you can create what's called a larger, life intention or a personal mission statement, some kind of guiding ethos that really allows you to push back against these societal conditionings of what men should and shouldn't be, and because you have a clear idea of who you are and what you're looking for. And I find that that's a proactive way of addressing this. So if we get stuck in this sort of framework that, men have this conditioning and they're conditioned not to share their emotions, it's very limiting, right? Because it's just, we're stuck in this thing. So I like to take it, what do you want to get out of life? And if what you want to get out of life, if the way that you are acting right now is in accordance with what you want to get out of life, then you're doing well, and there's nothing to change. But if you aren't getting what you want out of life, and there are things that, especially if you have a longer term intention, you have all these goals that you are working towards, then I think is the time where you need to pause. And this is where all this kind of internal work comes in, because it's just unfortunately not possible to get to where you want to be without doing, there's a lot of research. I mean, you can make a lot of money, and you can buy a fancy car, and you can move, and this stuff will give you temporary boosts. Even getting married, I mean, it's really sad. After 2 years, you revert back to your baseline of well-being. So this stuff doesn't tend to last, and there are things we can do, mental exercises we can do to give us a bigger boost than what we would typically get from them, because they fade very quickly. But even with that, we're still avoiding this sort of longer term life arc type of thing. And so, what I get to do with people is help them live more aligned with their core values, which they may not even know what those are, right, when they come to work with me. But through insights that they get by doing these evidence-based practices, together we kind of uncover them, because we start to hear themes and of what's important to you, relationships, what you want in your career, how you're taking care of yourself physically and mentally and spiritually. I mean, there are themes that come up, and we're able to kind of pinpoint them and say, okay, these seem like core values. Now we need to lean into these, because our goal again is human flourishing. So I almost, I guess for myself, I understand all of the conditioning. I thought, well, there's these things that society is placing on me, but what do I want to get out of life? I want empowerment, right? I don't want to be limited by what society is placing. And how do I move towards that? And so we can't just completely ignore our conditioning. I mean, that's not realistic, but we
Right.
can take back more of the agency and not give up, our spirit to societal conditioning.
No, I think to add to that too is you only know what you know. I feel like I see or have seen so many people of like, there's a problem, there's an issue, but you don't know like what it is or where to start because you just, I don't know what, being self-aware looks like. I don't know what cognitive behavioral therapy. I've heard that term. I don't know what that means. Or pick anything there. I think that's one of the starting points of like, okay, it's like maybe I can see it for you, but you haven't. You just know like I'm here because there's something, but I don't know what. I don't know where to start, and you're just trying to figure it out to break those societal norms and those kind of things of, trying to understand more about it all, I guess.
And change is scary. People
Right.
have, we have to honor that people have very limited time. And, people, especially, if you're a millennial dad, just off the cuff, some are now dealing with elder care and aging parents, or, health issues within their family. You may have children, at least one, maybe of a couple, maybe of three, maybe of four. People are working, spouses. I mean, people are working more than ever before, and there's all this research that people don't feel like they can take time off, right? So we have these like busy lives. Maybe you have, you're a religious commitment or a volunteering commitment. I mean, people just have these big, you can call them, Franklin Covey calls them big rocks. I call them anchor. Right. These things that are these big things in your life, and you're just trying to fit things in around them. So I think for a lot of people, mental internal exploration is sort of like, well, that sounds like a nice thing to have, but how do I fit this in? And so, my pitch to people is, it's going to enhance your overall life, much as, when you start a fitness regimen, if you haven't exercised in a while, right. You'll notice after a month you feel stronger and you have momentum, and you're fitting things in that you didn't think before because you hadn't implemented the habit. And right. So by, what I try to do is have people, spending maybe 10 minutes a day usually on what they're implementing for the week. And they start to get momentum, and through repetition, they build each week's practice into a habit. So, after a week is done, they move on to the next thing, but they have that pathway built now, and they can go back to that if it resonated with them. And if they're feeling stressed or dysregulated, or they feel like they are at a point where they've made progress towards a goal, but they need more clarity, they can go back and lean, they're empowered to go and revisit these. And the other thing I've noticed with working with people is, the mind and the body are connected. And so when we're feeling in alignment with our values and how we're living, and we're feeling regulated, we sleep better, we exercise more, we crave less sugar, alcohol. I mean, we just start living healthier. And I've noticed, I don't do this scientifically, I just ask people when they're working on specific practices, did you notice this week that your sleep was a little bit better? And invariably they'll say, actually, I was surprised. I had an easier time getting to sleep, or I didn't wake up through the night, my mind was more calm. I mean, there's a correlation with all this stuff. And so there's going to be these positive spillover effects into life. And I think if people are connected to a bigger understanding of what they want to get out of life, however you want to refer to it. Is it a life vision, a health vision, a mission statement? I mean, there's all these different ways to, but something guiding you that you feel like you can make decisions against and in line with. We just find that people start to become a lot stronger and healthier in different areas of their life. I mean, it's really kind of wild, actually. It's like the spillover effects. So
no, I was gonna say too, if like it's the brain's a muscle, right? It's like anything else. If like when you do it enough, it becomes a stronger muscle, and it's for me always my internal joke and external sometimes, depending an humoron of like, it starts up here, it's working its way down to the rest of the body. We'll get there eventually. I was gonna say too, of just thinking about what you're saying and the workshop that I was part of. We did that one exercise we were talking about, and then we also did about being in awe. I think that was what you called it. And
when I do these workshops, they're usually 45 minutes to an hour for usually a small group, and I explain that our well-being is based on our internal state and what's going on with us, and that's why we do a gratitude exercise to sort of increase our self-awareness on the things that we appreciate in life. But then also, how do we interact with the outer world, and what's our impact on the outer world? Because that shifts our perspective. We stop thinking about just what's going on with me, and we have all of this agency and ability to impact the world, which there's all this research showing that we feel better when we spend money on others than on ourselves, when we volunteer, when we take care of, there's this whole notion of service, citizenship, community, and it just makes us feel much better. And it changes our perspective because we're less focused on just ourselves and what's going on. We become less self-absorbed, more compassionate, more empathetic. Same thing happens when you have your first child, right? You're used to just taking care of yourself. All of a sudden you have a child and everything is about taking care of the child. It's it reprograms your brain. It's like a shock to the system. So in these workshops, so typically when I work with people, I have them spend a week or 2 weeks focused on acts of kindness and generosity that they can implement in their life. And we track it and we debrief. And again, we look for themes of what they did, because that will give them insights into who they are and the kinds of people that they helped. But because I only have people for a one-time sitting in a workshop for a short period of time, I ask them to pause and to think about these moments of awe that they've experienced, which is basically, how are you interacting with the world? And a moment of awe is something that made you stop and go, wow, and just kind of flipped your whole perspective. And so it could be, in nature, if you're up on a mountain, if you're a hiker and you look across and you just see this huge expanse. It could be looking up at a huge night sky and the moon. It could be if you have a child and they say something that you're like, wow, I can't believe my kid got that. Could be a work project where there was just all this symbiosis. It's really anything that happens in your life, but you're thinking about externally what's going on. And you take the time to really feel that and note it, and you'll notice your perspective has shifted. So I don't know when you came into that workshop what was going on with you from that day and things that you were carrying, but hopefully you left feeling more calm. Maybe you slept a little bit better that night, and you just sort of had your very subtly, just your perspective kind of changed, that maybe some of the things that you were focused on from the day, you kind of just were able to let go a little bit as you did these exercises.
Well, I was going to tie it into the self-awareness we were talking about, and tying this in, at least in my mind, see if this makes sense on the outer world that I'm speaking to here, the ether. That second piece of what's going on in your day, and then when I got there, of knowing not just the being where I am, of like, okay, I've learned, I've trained, I can put that away over here, and I can now focus on like things that we're talking about. And even in that, I enjoy exercises like that because it makes you stop and you think, you just kind of go through day to day and you think that you're doing the best you can with what you got, kind of mantra mentality. And I'll say specifically, I can share more about the awe story. So I have my first son. He is on the spectrum, and seeing how well he does day to day has always impressed me, and how well he does in school, and how well he acclimates, and how well he is doing in society and life. And he's in 3rd grade now. And when the awe piece that you were talking about, the first thing that hit me was that day specifically, not to bore people, but he loves facts. He loves, when he gets on a task and a tangent, that's his thing. So his thing that day was learning about phasing out of red dye 40 at 8 years old, and what the bugs are, be healthier options in red dye 40, and not just how that made me in awe that day of hearing, this is what he learned in school today, and what he's like wants to go on the computer and learn more about this evening, because that's his task, and he's going to learn everything about that. That's his superpower strength. It also made me stop and realize through that self-actualization and realization of myself throughout the years of, I can also see that he does that to me pretty much every day, right? Of like, it's not just that one day of awe. It is every day of something or something that he brings, or something that he does, or something that he says that is, makes you in awe of him and his own struggles and what he goes through to be able to get to where he is. And that's, I think is a great, hopefully great tale, hopefully great way of helping you too, of, people want to go of like, you can get there too, right? You can kind of see of these greater, bigger pictures the more that you spend learning about yourself and learning about the things that make you in awe, the things that you are grateful for. And I think that's a very underutilized, less understood kind of part of all this, that I think that you provide and are able to kind of like tap into for people of like, in that scheme of life, right? We only have X number of years and X number of hours, and what we're trying to do it all to take that reflective piece and to be not just self-aware, but able to kind of see it in that greater lens and understand it, and be at peace. I don't remember if I slept any better that night, but I did put a smile on my face for a few seconds of, he does this to me every day. It's always something, whether it's red dye 40 or whether it's a new dinosaur he learned about, or whatever it is. He always puts me in awe.
Yeah. So I think the other amazing thing about awe is that it's all around us, right? That you found it just in your home with your son, and something that might have been routine, but all of a sudden you had this sort of awakening that this was a really special experience. Mm-hmm. And what I try to communicate to people is that this is not, you don't have to take a fancy vacation to the most beautiful place in the world to experience this. But this gets back to what you were saying earlier about self-awareness. I know for me, it's very regulating and calming for me to go for long walks, and sometimes I go on a nature trail, and sometimes I just go through a sort of a quiet neighborhood. Mm-hmm. But I always spend the time looking up and looking at leaves and trees and just trying to take in the power of nature. For me, that's just very calming and awe-inspiring. And I don't have to pay for that or go travel. I just step out of my door and go for a nice long walk. So it's part of, I think, the joy of this is you get to kind of look at your life with beginner's mind in a new lens and just sort of say, okay, I'm used to my day-to-day life and the patterns that I have, and how I experience things in relationships. But through the work I do with people, you're able to look at it with, again, beginner's mind, fresh eyes, and you may have this experience where you say, oh, well, my son's doing something similar every day, but I'm seeing the uniqueness and the specialness of this and the brilliance of it, right? And it's bringing a smile on my face. I mean, I'm pausing and I feel more connected to him. I see his ingenuity and uniqueness. And this stuff is all accessible to us all the time. It's just tapping into it. And people know, I do believe that everyone is, mindful and creative and resourceful and whole, and I certainly have this kind of empowerment perspective. I think that the barrier is just tapping into being able to pause and being okay with some stillness so that we can figure out the beauty in the life that we're living versus just sort of sitting with our default programming and letting that negativity bias cloud things because it's scanning for problems and, you know, trying to keep us safe. So I mean, the awe, you know, the awe experience is a really just a powerful perspective shifter, and also just allows you. It's very empowering, right? It gives you a lot of agency. You take away from it that I had this experience that comes up frequently, and I was able to experience a lot of joy from it, and connect with a loved one more because of it, and because you were just given a little bit of time and space to pause and focus in on it. So that, you know, again, gets at the self-awareness you brought up earlier. It's definitely a recurring theme with all this work.
Definitely, I agree. And just to remind everyone, Jesse Erdheim, ERDHEIM.com. Go to his website so you too can learn about gratitude and awe. Go check out his workshop, reach out to him. Definitely happy to meet you and glad that we connected. Before we go, we always like to do a little rapid fire questions. So as we know in psychology, the first thing that pops in your mind is usually the best answer.
Great.
We'll run through a few here. First one is, what's one death superpower you wish you had?
Being able to stay up later at night. I fall asleep at like 9:30. I'm early. Yeah. So.
What is your guilty? Do you have guilty pleasure snack in the day or at night, or something that puts you to sleep there?
Yeah. Anything like salty, so popcorn, Chex Mix, chips, anything.
Do you prefer early morning quiet time or late night reflection?
Oh, early morning quiet time. Yeah, I don't think I ever have late night reflection because I'm always asleep. I'm up at like 4:45 in the morning and I'm in bed by like 9 to 10. Yeah.
Do you have a quote unquote, what's the most dad thing you've done in the last week or two? Or longer? What thing that pops in your mind?
Well, I'm going to go see Wicked with my wife and my daughter tomorrow. So that's the big.
That's a dad duty.
We saw it in the movie theater 2 or 3 times last year, so we're doing it tomorrow, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, that should be fun. Last one is, if you could give every dad in the world, you know, one sentence of wisdom or a word of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, it's just pausing and taking the time to do what you need to do to become calm, so that you can respond to whatever happens in life in the way that you want to move towards your goals.
I like it. Thank you very much, Dr. Jesse Erdheim. Sir Jesse Erdheim, ERDHEIM.com. Thank you very much. If you found value in this episode, hopefully you can share it with another dad who might need or want to hear it. And if you're working on becoming a calmer, more connected, more confident dad, check out the resources at DADennial.com. Follow along on our YouTube channel for hopefully get some daily tools out there, and leave feedback. And thanks for hanging out with us today. And go to jesseerdheim.com. I was really thankful to get to meet you a few weeks ago, and the gratitude and the awe has definitely helped me. I have them posted up here in my office here of things to use as referrals for myself and maybe for others too, if needed, especially with the holidays upcoming. Definitely has some gratitude and some awe might be needed in the next week or two. So feel free. And thank you, Jesse. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.